Get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Once again, President Donald Trump committed to not committing to a peaceful transition of power. Now, this is sort of an extension of what he's already talked about before. The Chris Wallace interview, he discussed how, he has to wait and see how the election goes. Of course, this is setting up the obvious conclusion here on Election Day, where Trump is going to attempt to claim victory even though he didn't win. And mail-in ballots are going to be a massive chunk of the vote this year because of the coronavirus. So we likely won't know the result for at least several days after the election, unless there really is a blowout from Joe Biden. Don't expect Trump to have a blowout at all. The only way Trump really wins this election is if he wins the Electoral College or steals the election. Joe Biden will absolutely win the popular vote, but the issue becomes mail-in ballots. Is there going to be enough in-person voting for Biden to be able to claim victory on Election Day? Or are we going to have to wait a few days later, and in that process, is Trump going to claim victory? Of course he will. And then we get into a deeper discussion about the Supreme Court. And anyways, I'll touch on a bit more of this in a minute. First, let me show you what Trump recently said at a press conference.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
The ballots are out of control. And if you just get rid of the ballots, there'll be a continuation of power. This is what dictators say. I've begun to tell people now, if you can, if you're healthy, if you're careful, if you wear a mask, wear gloves, vote in person. If possible, hopefully it's available in your state, vote early in person. At this point, how can you possibly trust Trump to accept the results of the mail-in ballots? He's going to try and claim victory on Election Day, which is largely going to be ballots consisting of same-day voting, and then it will take from Election Day on to count all the mail-in ballots. If you vote in person and there is an overwhelming result for Joe Biden, then it limits his options. He's still going to try and steal the election, but it limits his options. Now, I highly suggest you read this. This is a piece from The Atlantic. The election that could break America. If the vote is close, Donald Trump could easily throw the election into chaos and subvert the result. Who will stop him? It's a long piece, but I'm going to link to it below the video in the description box under sources. It'll be labeled as The Atlantic. Read the piece. Understand what we are likely going to be up against come Election Day and beyond. It's everything from Trump using the Supreme Court to claiming victory on Election Day to having the electors change the result in Republican states. I mean, it goes through all of it, and a lot of it is sourced based on what Republicans and people in the administration are already talking about. So be aware of what they are going to try and do. They are going to try and steal the election. And your only course of action, the only thing you really can do at this point, right, for now, is if you can, if you're healthy, if you're in a safe district, vote in person early. And if not, of course, yes, vote by mail, but you know what Trump's going to try and do. Let me get some reactions here. Marco Rubio. So a couple of, at least as far as I've seen, a couple of GOP senators have come out and kind of denounced this, except you notice something similar with these two tweets that I'm about to show you. So Rubio here tweets out, "As we have done for over 2 centuries, we will have a legitimate and fair election. It may take longer than usual to know the outcome, but it will be a valid one. And at noon on January 20th, 2021, we will peacefully swear in the president." Mitt Romney says, "Fundamental to our democracy is the peaceful transition of power. Without that, there is Belarus. Any suggestion that a president might not represent or might not respect this constitutional guarantee is both unthinkable and unacceptable." Notice how in both, they do not mention Donald Trump. In fact, Romney says any suggestion that a president, who knows why I'm tweeting this, but any suggestion that a president might not respect the constitutional guarantee, they're not going to do anything. This is just like the Supreme Court. They are not going to do anything. If they actually wanted to fight Trump, they would not be accepting and supporting a Trump Supreme Court pick. Both of these senators are supporting Trump in replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Not to mention supporting every other policy issue that Trump has pushed forward. So this is all performance. This is all to make you think. If the reason they are doing this is that if Trump loses and actually is pushed out, then they can turn around and say, well, I was fighting Trump the whole time. I mean, look at my tweets. I was fighting Trump the whole time. Meanwhile, they're actually not doing anything. The entire party is corrupt. The entire party does not care. Ben Mankiewicz tweets out here, "This is what happens in dictatorships. Now this man who's threatening to use the full power and authority of the United States to undermine the results of an election wants to add a Supreme Court justice to help make it happen. Every senator who values democracy should stop him." Exactly, because again, the Supreme Court pick is part of this process. Trump is going to try and use the Supreme Court to his advantage in disputing the results of the election. And they know this as well. These GOP senators also know this. So them supporting the Supreme Court pick is supporting Trump stealing the election. And what are Democrats doing? Again, more performance. Schiff urges Trump administration members to resign. You cannot maintain your silence. Oh, I am very disappointed in the GOP. They should resign. It's really horrible what Trump said. It's really horrible that what Republicans are doing. It's really bad. They should resign. How about using the power that you have? Why aren't they trying to impeach Bill Barr right now for abuse of power? There is a whole breakdown. There's several websites breaking down the case to impeach Bill Barr. This one focuses on abuse of power, brings up 4 different ways they could impeach him. I'll link to this as well below the video. There's full explanations in the PDF. Read this. Understand what the Democrats could be doing to also stop the Supreme Court nominee pick, because impeachment of Bill Barr would take precedent over a Supreme Court nominee. But Democratic Party is not doing anything. They're not. It's all performance. Oh, the GOP should be really disappointed. How about doing something to stop them? What a garbage party. A garbage opposition party. And also, just to go on the Bill Barr point here, Data for Progress poll, a majority of voters think that Attorney General Bill Barr should be impeached. And by the way, these guys predicted almost every single victory in the primaries. So they're very accurate, they're polling. Here, voters know what needs to happen. This is the same thing with so many issues. Medicare for all, the voters are on the side of the Democratic Party, yet Democratic Party does not accept that. Obviously, yes, we get into issue of donors, big donors like the insurance industry. But understand that the Democratic Party, even though they have the people on their side when it comes to impeachment of Bill Barr, when it came to impeachment of Trump, when it comes to Medicare for all, when it comes to raising taxes on the wealthy, when it comes to almost practically every single policy issue that Bernie Sanders fought for, the voters are on the side of those policy issues, yet the Democratic Party will not fight for them. All you can do as a voter, apart from peacefully protesting, is ensure you vote. I know it sounds like, oh, vote and everything will change. No, things will not magically get better when Biden's in, but it's putting a Band-Aid on this reality right now. It's cutting off the tumor that is Donald Trump. The only way to progress here is to get out the cancer and then fight a Joe Biden administration from the left with people as well that are in Congress that will also make the case. So it's not just people on YouTube or the occasional person on television discussing how, there should be Medicare for all, for example, but also people in Congress, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, the rest, fighting a Joe Biden administration. But you cannot, they have no power. The progressives that are actually in Congress, the few that exist, have no power as long as Trump is in power. So the only way you start a real debate is getting Trump out. And understand he will do everything he can to steal this election.